Okay, I have started recording. All right, so hi everyone. Like I said earlier, today is our last workshop of the year. This is a new workshop to our workshop series, and it's about what the options that you have after the STEM fair or the Greater San Diego Science and Engineering Fair. And we're going to talk about a lot of our experiences with doing research outside of the fair and how we've kind of reinforced like what we're passionate about beyond just the GSDSEF. So we're just going to do a couple introductions like usual. So hi everyone, my name is Jessie. I am a senior and my project category is biochemistry.
Hi everyone, my name is Eleanor. I'm a sophomore. My category is in microbiology.
Hi everyone, I'm Kavya. I'm also a sophomore, and my project category is medicine and health science.
Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm in 11th grade, and my project category is medicine and health sciences.
I'm Sanjana. I'm a senior, and my project category is environmental sciences and management.
Hi everyone, I'm Kyle, and I specialize in environmental engineering.
Awesome. So we're going to be presenting the slides and then doing a couple, we're going to be doing an open Q&A later. So each of us has a specific category and we'll be able to answer like project specific or category specific questions in like the open Q&A. So today we're going to be talking about things like why are we continuing our research beyond the fair, and also how to do so, such as taking it to further fairs or doing more publications, or sometimes even like patents or starting our own organizations. And then we're going to do that open Q&A that I was talking about. So first of all, doing research in high school and continuing to do things past science fair has a lot of benefits. You'll develop a lot of important research skills, such as like learning how to ask good scientific questions, also performing like data analyses and formulating like good conclusions. So getting the research experience will also help you narrow down what you're interested in, and you can develop your passions in a certain field through research beyond the fair. Lastly, like in addition, you'll also make like these connections that are really important. You can make them with like other students, judges, and mentors, and they can be super helpful in the future because the whole experience like really helps you get a better feel for your community. And it can also really round out a college application. So these are all good reasons to continue in research. But of course, engaging in research before college is mostly really for fun. And it's one of the most interesting and rewarding extracurriculars you can have. So there are a couple of ways that you can participate in research, and we've listed some here. So you can bring your project to other conferences and competitions. In addition, if you did an engineering project, you can try to file like patents for your work, or if you did more of a science project, you can publish in like high school journals. On the other hand, you can also continue your work next year for the work that you did this year for the GSDSEF, you can continue in a continuation project. Or if you want to develop a completely new project or new skills, you can apply to some well-known research programs, get a research mentor, or take a college class that goes deeper in your subject. And lastly, you could also join a science club or society that advocates for your field. And today we're going to hear about two of them run by SLB members.
So I'll be talking about a few of the competitions that you can apply to if you're in middle school and you're passionate about research. So two of the biggest middle school competitions are the 3M Young Scientist Challenge and the Broadcom Masters. For the 3M Young Scientist Challenge, this is a competition for all students from grades 5 to 8 to show off their science fair projects, and you get a chance at winning a summer mentorship with the 3M scientists, along with a bunch of other cool things. The application process is mainly based around a 2-minute video. So when you're recording the video, make sure that you speak very loudly, you're confident, and you go to a pretty place to film your video. You don't need to have any prior qualifications for this competition, and I really recommend you to apply. Making the video is really fun, and if you get into the top 10, you can get access to a mentor, and the mentor is going to immensely make your project better. And the Broadcom Masters is another national science competition for middle schoolers. To apply for this, you have to qualify through either GSDSEF or CSEF. And if you qualified through GSD-SCF, on your slide that appeared during the award ceremony, there should have been a little text box that said you qualified for the Broadcom Masters. The application process is pretty difficult and quite long. There are essay questions like, how would you estimate the amount of trash produced by the United States every year? So you have to write several questions or answers to questions like that. If you get into the top 30, you'll be rewarded with a week-long trip to Washington, D.C., where you'll meet a bunch of really cool people, make some great friends, eat a lot of good food, do a bunch of science-related challenges, and it's honestly a life-changing experience. So I would really recommend you try to apply for both these competitions.
Hi everyone, my name is Eleanor. I'm going to be talking about some high school competitions that you can apply to. Maybe not necessarily this year because some of them have passed the deadline, but it might be something you want to consider next year. And also my Wi-Fi is acting up, so sorry if I cut out. So if you're in high school, these are some more competitions that are available to you, and they also don't have any prerequisites. JSHS has a local and a national division, so you can look on their website to sign up. The format is usually a 10-minute slide presentation, and that's like similar to this year's science fair. You can also apply to the Google Science Fair, but sometimes they don't host it. So if you're interested, be sure to look out for it in future years. And lastly, you can also submit to the International Youth Research Summit, which is held by the Helix Initiative. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but it's a science society run by Andrew. There are some other high school competitions that you have to qualify for, either through our fair or the state fair, CSEF. So starting off, there's the Biogenius Challenge, which is a competition internationally that focuses on creating projects and technologies to solve prevalent problems come up with the technologies to solve problems in healthcare, sustainability, and environmental fields. So what happens is that 5 Southern California Biogenius Challenge finalists will be selected by the SoCal Bio judges via intensive interviews, and the finalists will be notified at the end of the poster presentation period at CSEF or the state fair after you qualify or move on from the GSD-SCF. You can also go to the ISEF if you won the grant awards or you win first at CSEF. It's also run by the Society for Science, like Broadcom Masters, and it will mostly be virtual this year. And another cool thing about ISEF is that it's the top international fair for high school students.
Awesome. So now we're going to be moving into some fairs that are project category specific. The Stockholm Junior Water Prize is a competition for students that are aged anywhere between 15 and 20 who have developed school projects that can solve major water challenges. So if you have any water-related projects that solve major water issues in society, definitely turn in your paper for the Stockholm Junior Water Prize. The Stockholm Junior Water Prize application process is pretty intensive in the fact that you have to write a paper that's up to 20 pages, but writing things like the project notebook set you up really well for that, so it won't be much work if you choose to apply. You may receive regional nominations from the GSD-SCF, but that's not required to apply for the actual competition, so anyone can enter. Additionally, there's the Clean Tech competition, which is a unique worldwide research and design challenge for pre-college youth. This program encourages scientific understanding of real-world issues and the integrations of environmentally responsible energy resources. Similar to the Stockholm Junior Water Prize, you have to submit your paper on the specific topic for that competition season.
Sorry, I realized I was unmuted. Okay. So moving on to opportunities that aren't like fairs or competitions, you can also publish in a journal. And so what does it like really mean to like publish in a journal or publish a manuscript? Well, typically you condense your research report that you wrote for the science fair into a more focused article, and then you submit it to a journal for review. So it's a good idea to publish because publications are how professional scientists make real impact and they gain recognition for their work. So while maybe in science fair, where our work is like recognized in terms of like prizes and places, in collegiate level research, Science is recognized through how many publications you have out and like how much they've made an impact in the world. So we recommend starting with like a local or high school journal such as Journeys, which is based right here in San Diego. And so in Torrey Pines, I'm part of Journeys. So if you have any questions, you can forward them to the mailing list and I'll look at them. And so I can also plug our website somewhere. And so we'll take a lot of articles, and we've been publishing for almost a decade, and basically we take a lot of original research articles, and we're like often the first platform for students that are doing like science fair. Other amazing journals include the National High School Journal of Science and the Canadian Science Fair Journal. So these are a bit like they accept papers like nationally. So remember that like our top tip for getting accepted is remembering to read the manuscript directions and author instructions. Definitely that's the number one thing that people screen for is how well you've read the directions and kept your word counts as well as like formats. So that's my number one tip for getting accepted to journals.
So if you want to translate your work to like a company or commercial use, for example, if you invented some really cool like car wheel, you want to patent it so that people can't steal your work and use it for their own interests. So essentially, it's a way to protect your intellectual property and your innovations, so preventing other people from stealing it. And there's it's a little bit legal and it can be confusing. So it is recommended to get a lawyer if you are serious of planning on making a company. But there's two types of patents: provisional, non-provisional. Provisional comes first, and it's highly recommended. So it's not an official patent. Like you can't sue someone with it, but it is provisional as the word says. So for 1 year, I think, before filing a non-provisional patent, you can do stuff, and it basically holds your spot in line. And it once you file your non-provisional patent, it's kind of like you've filed it a year earlier than you did because of the provisional patent. So it's like a protective placeholder. Um, Also, there's design and utility patents. I feel like most of you guys would be using utility patents. Design patents are about the way your invention looks. It's specifically supposed to be non-ornamental, non-functional. So like a company's logo would be protected by design patent. But most of us are inventing things that have functions, I hope. So the utility patent would probably be more useful there. And you should definitely consult a patent attorney for your non-provisional patents and probably all your patents, and don't take my advice because I'm not a lawyer, but yeah. And there's a link to some resources on patent filing from the US Patent Trademark Office.
Okay, so yeah, those are all opportunities that focus on taking your current project to different levels. But if you think that your project is incomplete or you may have some potential for additional experiments, you can also do a continuation project to submit more work that you do next year. So when you do this, you should remember to ask yourself if your project has enough unknowns or new ideas to continue with an entirely new project. Continuation projects must show significant work beyond the results from the year before. So think of it as a new but related project that can stand out on its own with minimal support from the previous year's results. And then also, if your continuation project doesn't work out, please note that you're more than welcome to come to next year's fair with a brand new project. So with a different topic if you want as well. Okay, so next, another option to engage your research skills is by enrolling in different summer or school year research programs. So here's a couple well-known research programs, and some of the more local ones are the SALK, Broadly program, and then Cosmos at UCSC. But then there's also some that are across the country. So MIT's Research Science Institute and then Stony Brook's summer research programs are on the East Coast. So consider these carefully. And then note that Cosmos, or the California State Summer School for Mathematics and Science, is largely focused on teaching research and STEM-oriented skills. So it's there to help you get like more fundamental basic research skills. And then on the other hand, MIT and RSI and the SALT program and the Stony Brook Summer Research Program are all project-based. So you should visit the respective websites to learn more about the application project and then whether or not you're eligible. And then also you should probably, oh, that's okay. Just in general, some of these programs for the 2021 year, their applications have probably passed. You might want to check them out or keep them in mind for next year. Okay, and then if you're looking for a less structured opportunity, it's where you can more present your project more and things like that. You can also reach out to local mentors and try to learn more from them. So a research mentor is a scientist in your field who's willing to mentor you on a project, right? So many of us here have had research mentors, and personally, they know how to I know how invaluable they are to research process and development of your basic scientific skills. So if you're serious about doing research in future, then it would be a good idea to at some point at least work with a mentor. But getting a research mentor can be more tricky. So a couple ways that we've tried are through cold emailing, through personal connections, or participating in research programs and continuing on. So Polygens is a research mentor finder, which helps you pair up with a research mentor on a project, proposed project idea. So that's something that'll help you. But then of course, things like cold emailing and then personal connections definitely help as well.
Ellen, are you doing okay?
Sorry.
Good.
I think I disconnected a bit. So personal connections, such as through a family friend or emailing in programs, can be difficult for some. But the most accessible method is cold emailing, which is where you do some research or labs that you think may be a good fit, and then you send an inquiry email to them. So some common places that we recommend are labs at UCSD and the Salk Institute. So in a cold email, you should include why you think the research is interesting, and the field, such as briefly talking about your project. And if you have a resume, that could be good to attach as well. But you should also make sure that you have to send, make sure you know you have to send like a lot of cold emails to get a positive response, because a lot of times these professors or graduate students are very busy and can't always make time to mentor students. But if you do get really lucky with a great mentor, and it's definitely possible, some SLB mentors have gotten mentors through this method.
So now going a little farther from research and more into developing your skills, you may be interested in deeper classes in your field. So like if you discover a passion through your science fair project, you might be interested in like a college program. So many colleges allow high school students to take classes as long as they've fulfilled some required prerequisites. But this program is like different for each college. Personally, I haven't done this, so I don't have a lot of insight onto it, but I know some of us in the SLB have done this, and I've found it to be really instrumental in learning the skills for their research. Especially if you have a connection through a particular mentor, they might be able to point you to a certain class or program that is tailored to your interests. So generally, this may be not more like research focused, but it could be something really interesting for you to like take on. Personally, the only one that I know of that is like, I guess most accessible is, I believe, MIT's OpenCourseWare is basically MIT uploads all their lectures, all the lecture recordings and all the notes and problem sets onto their website, OpenCourseWare. So if you want to do like a class independently, you can look and see if they have that class there.
So now we're going to talk about some organizations that we founded because they were inspired by our scientific research. I co-founded Clearwater Innovation with my sister. Clearwater Innovation is a nonprofit that generates awareness about the global water crisis and encourages environmental research in home labs. We do a bunch of things like write advocacy blog posts. We do inspiring interviews with water innovators, and we host water-related events and workshops. This was a great way to keep expanding my research and get in contact with more people who in the water industry. So if any of you guys are interested, or if you have a water topic that you're passionate about, please contact us with the 2 emails on screen. We'd love to either interview you or write a blog post about it.
So hi, I'm Andrew, and my society is the Helix Initiative, and it's focused on bioinformatics research opportunities, and we try to provide free online courses, workshops, and webinars. We have a webinar this Sunday at 1:30 with Maggie Chen. So she's an associate graduate from my school, and she did some really awesome microbiology research, and she is a Davidson Fellow with Jesse. She's on Top 40 like Jesse. Wow, and also she won first at ISEF for her microbiology work, and so yeah, it's really cool. And if you're interested in asking about science fair, asking questions about ISEF or Davidson, you should definitely join the webinar on Sunday, and you can just register there to get a reminder email. Um, and if you're also interested in our free online courses, such as a course on gene expression analysis, someone who took the course actually qualified for ISEF recently, so that's pretty cool. You can check it out at our website, helix.science. So yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks everyone. So I know that some of you joined a little bit in the middle. So right now we're just gonna have an open Q&A session. So if you missed anything, or if you're curious about a particular thing that we talked about, a fair that we talked about, a lot of us have competed in the fairs or done some of the things that we talked about, such as the research programs or like publishing. So right now, I think we're just gonna do an open Q&A. You can submit your questions in the chat, and then I'll just start from the ones that I got at the top. Sorry, just as a reminder, I think I'm going to record the open Q&A. So please, for all the participants, please just keep yourself muted so that you won't be recorded. Okay. All right. So the first question I got was like, should I expand on my project for the state fair? So that's a really good question. I believe you can actually continue doing work on your project for state fair. The only problems or things that you might have to think about there are that if you're, for example, if your project starts to require a new type of form, like say you were a purely computational project and then you started to do some experimental work where you needed some forms to say that like you were qualified to do work with cells, for example, then you would need to make sure you filled out that form before you submitted for the state fair. But otherwise, I believe most fairs are very open about the rules on how far you can continue your project. You usually don't have to keep it like set from what you applied for. So that's like a great question. Does anybody else have any comments on that in particular? Has anybody else like blew up their project after they submitted it? I've definitely added on to my project before, so. Okay. The second question that I got was, do we have mentors for state CSEF? Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by mentors, but definitely if you need help like applying or something like that, you can always email us. Does anybody have any stories about like maybe what was hard for them for a state and you want to like talk about how to like avoid those pitfalls? Okay, well then it's just me then, because state was really hard to apply for me. Like if you have a project that involves cells, for example, and you're in the high school, something really important to know is that the GSD-SEF has their own separate forms, right? Everybody turned in some form for the GSD-SEF. And if you have a project where you need, we're using biological agents or cells, you need a specific form or multiple forms depending on what you're doing. However, if you qualify for state and then you want to also, and you're in the high school, so you also want to qualify for ISEF, because state is so close to ISEF, you need to have your ISEF forms. They only accept ISEF forms at state. So I had a really big issue where I didn't have my ISEF forms. I only filled out the GSD-SEF forms for my project, and I had to like backdate. So just like note for anybody who's in the high school who is planning on doing any experimental work, when you fill out the forms at the very beginning for the GSD-SEF, it's always a good idea to fill out your ISEF forms too, because ISEF forms are a nightmare. I had to fill out like 8 ISEF forms. Okay, so like read carefully and definitely do that because you don't want that to happen. A lot of ISEF form scandals happen. Does anybody want to add on to that, or did I cover that more or less? Okay, I should read the questions and someone else should answer them now. All right, another question I have is, I'm going to be trying to add more to my notebook to CSEF, but I have a lack of participants. Does anybody who's done like a behavioral science project have an idea on how to get more participants? I've never done a behavioral science project, so I'm not actually sure. Okay, so our behavioral science people aren't here, but I'm sure what they would say is, okay, I'm going to forward that question to the behavioral science people, but generally, I believe the way that they do it is usually classmates is a good first pass, and then out in the community, just Kyle or Andrew want to offer up your following from your like, I don't know, organization? Is that like a way that you've done things in the past, or just like, no, I don't know. So unfortunately, most of us, I believe, are actually biology and medicine and health mentors today, or yeah, most of us are biology and medicine and health. So unfortunately, we do not have our behavioral science people today, but I will forward that question to them. Okay, next, I was wondering if the GSDSEF or the CSEF would have or provide mentors for the state fair, and which organization would be good to publish work for a middle schooler. Okay, like I said earlier, I'm not sure what everyone means about mentors. Did anybody know where that's coming from?
I'm assuming that mentors may refer to like teacher mentors, like the ones we have for GSDSEF, but I guess they could also refer to like a research mentor, like Kyle was describing with the 3M challenge. So
Okay, interesting. So, okay, I guess just to clarify on things with mentors, so there's like a teacher mentor, right? But a lot of high school students have project mentors, and sometimes you have forms for both. For example, for ISF, they're very specific, like here's a form specifically for your project mentor. These are usually people who are like PhDs or graduate students who are working with you on your work, or professors. And then there's like a form for your teacher who's kind of like signing off on your project, and your science teacher, right? We do not provide mentors per se. I'm not sure where provide mentors, like, oh, the SLB mentors. Okay, I understand what you mean now. So the SLB does have a mentorship program, right? CSCF does not have any follow-up like that. It's largely like organization run, and there is not a lot of student involvement concerning like mentors like us that we do. That is solely a local fair process. However, like if you qualified for CSCF and you have questions about like what are the best things to put on a CSCF application, or like how to actually present, because it's a little bit, I always feel like CSEF is a little bit different from like other fairs. Yeah, you can always like forward them to the SLB email, or if you had a mentor, you can contact your SLB mentor, and I'm sure they will definitely answer any questions you have. Organizations for publishing work in a middle schooler. I guess I have to answer that question too, because I'm the only one who helps run the journal. But Journeys doesn't technically have an age limit. Well, there's an age minimum, or no, an age maximum. You can't not be a high school student to publish in Journeys. However, if you would like to submit your work to Journeys as a middle school student, and it is like sufficient and we like it, then yes, we will. I believe we do not have any restrictions barring middle school students. So yeah, you can definitely try pushing for Journeys, because that's a local journal.
I know for the Canadian Science Fair Journal, even though it is like international, national, I guess, it's like specifically focused for like science fair projects, like student science fair projects. So if they accept your paper, then you should be able to as a middle schooler.
Okay, the email address if we need help from SLB members for CSEF. Does someone want to drop? Does anybody know it besides me? I know it, but okay. Well, I believe it's just by the way, the email address is the one that it's just the same one that I've been emailing everybody with. But I'm just double checking that it's the right one. In the meantime, I know that everybody has a specific fair that they've been to. That's not like, because we don't have that many questions right now. I know that everybody has a specific fair that they've been to that maybe is different from others. So maybe does everybody want to go around and share like maybe one fair or an experience? Yeah, Andrew?
Sure, I can help now because I haven't been to CSAF, or so I wasn't able to help earlier. Sorry, but I did JSHS this a few weeks ago, and it was like a smaller. So basically, what happens is you submit a paper to them like really early on in the year. You have to be really careful about JSHS deadlines. I missed them for like the last 2 years because they're like in November. This year they were in January because COVID. But you submit a paper, and they have some like professional people like doctors or environmental scientists read your paper, and then they rank you, and then I think the top 18 or top 18 people get picked to present at an oral presentation at like a symposium, and it's a lot smaller group than San Diego Science Fair. And from there you can compete for prizes and to compete at the national fair. So I thought it was an interesting experience because it was a more like a smaller fair, so and it was more close knit, and you got to hear the other students' presentations, which was pretty cool. And I definitely recommend applying because if you've already done the work for the San Diego Science Fair, you might as well go to another science fair and get more experience. But yeah.
I was going to add, like, on a normal year, there are actually usually more students that get to go, but it's just that this year, Irvine kind of they didn't host us this year, so we had to do GASHS with Intermountain Region, so they cut the number of people who could present by like half.
I can talk a little bit about the Stockholm Junior Water Prize. So, as I mentioned before, the application process is a bit rigorous in the fact that you have to write a research paper, a pretty thorough one, up to 20 pages. In my experience, the most successful papers that I've seen typically delve mostly into the significance of the project and how their solution can benefit society as a whole. And the Stockholm Junior Water Prize is very selective actually because you essentially only submit a research paper and then you hear back whether or not you're the state representative. And if you're the state representative, which we have had within our SLB, which is awesome, then you move on to nationals. And then if you move on from nationals, you get to compete in the international level. And in a year where there isn't COVID, you get to go to, I believe it's Sweden, and you essentially present to like world diplomats. So if you go to the Stockholm Junior Water Prize, essentially you can make it very big. It's a very cool experience if you do. So I highly recommend that. Oh, also one more thing. If you do write the 20-page paper for Stockholm Junior Water Prize, it's extremely reusable for other science fairs. Like I've applied using the exact same paper essentially for several other science fairs, and it's worked perfectly well. So
Yeah, for Stockholm, even though it's like, wow, only one person per state, it's like, if you guys have confidence in your work, and I'd say definitely try it out because, yeah, as Sanjana said, someone from SLB and specifically San Diego was able to get it. So it's definitely like attainable. So you guys should try it out. And then also, this is kind of a side thing, but if you guys are interested in checking out like conferences, that's also another thing. So I personally I'm preparing for one right now, I guess. So the thing about conferences is that it's kind of like, I wouldn't say a mini science fair, but it's like you're presenting your work to like different people. So usually it's like experts in the field. So when you do that, then you get like an exposure with different experts, and then also different students presenting their work and things like that. So that's also good exposure.
I guess I'll talk a little bit about 3M Young Scientist Challenge and Broadcom Masters because I've participated in both of those. For the 3M Young Scientist Challenge, it's after you get into the top 10, you spend quite a lot of time with your mentor and talking with the other 3M people. Because for me, everything was online since COVID and stuff. My experience might have been a little bit different, but with my mentor, I basically Zoom called with him every week. So we met up about the project. I updated him of any new results. And this mentorship really like helped improve my project because it kind of forced me to work on my project even though I didn't want to, because I have to show my mentor something new every week. And my mentor is really great. His name's Dr. Jonah Shaver. He has a lot of turkeys in his backyard because he lives up over in Minnesota or something. Was able to provide a lot of interesting information about my project. And honestly, it's really great to have a mentor because he has a lot of information that you wouldn't necessarily know just from Googling or trying to figure things out on your own. So we did that over the entire summer. And then as we got closer to the event, all the top 10 finalists would meet up in Zoom calls and we would play games, science-related games, and also people would give us presentations about, for example, how to do good research, how to make a good final presentation for the final event. So yeah, and then finally, when we reached the final event, this was all online, and it was like 2 days of a lot of stress, but it was also really fun. Um, so we each prepared like 10-minute final presentations, and we did 2 science-related challenge. I think we had to make some sort of device for landing on Mars using 3M materials. Oh yeah, that's another thing that I forgot to mention. For when you're preparing with your mentor for the final event, you have to add a 3M component to the device that you've made. So naturally, you're kind of forced to improve your project, which is really great. So yeah, that was my experience for 3M. I guess I can also talk a bit about Broadcom Masters. For this one, I was actually in person, which was really awesome. Broadcom was honestly one of the best experiences I've ever had because I got to meet with these 29 other really smart and fun people, and I still have connections to them from this day. We have a Discord, what's it called, Discord server with all of them in it, and we always chat about science, what we're doing for school, and how science fair is going. So yeah, it's really great to establish connections with a bunch of other really cool people. And during the 1 week event at Washington, D.C., it's quite stressful, but again, it's also really fun. You have to wake up really early sometimes, and um, we did a bunch of science challenges. For example, making a rover to go into the bay and pick up samples from the bottom of the water. And so we got things like that, really test kind of how good you are at STEM, and also expand your creativity a lot. And Jesse, you also went to Broadcom, so I guess you can talk about that too.
Yeah, I went to Broadcom a couple of years ago, but actually I have one more question that I think I'm gonna like use to like wrap up, and then after that I don't want to hold everyone for too long. So if you have further questions, feel free to stay, but then this is going to be our last question where it's like a formal end of our presentation. So I had a great question for the whole group. Wait, I don't know if it's actually a good question for the whole group. The question is, do you have any tips for students entering the state science fair? How many of us have been to state? Because I've been to state. I don't know how many others. 2? Okay. Okay, so I guess I'll just do a tip for state, and then everyone else should do a tip for like another, like the fair that they talked about, or just like a tip for doing better at the GSDSEF. Okay. So my tip for entering the state science fair, I would say that at the state science fair, when it's in person, like the neatness and how nice your board looks actually helps a lot, because at our fair, I can proudly say that our fair is like very like fair. Our judges come to each project because they're genuinely interested in your scientific knowledge, and they give prizes on the they give prizes very fairly. They give them on the basis of like how well they've felt that you like encapsulated your project. Although this year it was really hard because we had time limits, but usually I feel like they're reasonably fair. So at state, I'm not saying that they're not fair. It's just that like a lot of the judges at state judge like a lot on maybe how novel or interesting your project is, as well as how good it looks. So definitely looks and just doing the nice things, right? Like labeling all your figures, being neat about your project, even printing your board for fair may give you a small advantage in that like judges will want to talk to you more. So I think that in the state, because it's so competitive and that there are a lot of projects like around at state, I think my biggest tip there for next year when it's in person is that like you should definitely like try, just be like neat about your board. I guess this year I don't really know how it's gonna go, but like yeah, just try your best and don't feel bad about it because state is super competitive.
I think probably a good tip for literally all science fairs is to make sure you emphasize the impact of your project, because you can make some really cool device for like plating food or something, but it's like not actually useful for many people. So this is also kind of related to cold emailing. So I would recommend you reach out to experts in your field, tell them about your project. And if they say, wow, this has the possibility of having a really big impact, that's really good for your project, because you can kind of talk about it at the end of your project. For example, I reached out to a guy from the California Water Board, and he was like, wow, your device could be really useful. So things like that really just make your project stand out from other projects, because you show to the judges that you can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I I can say for like relating to experts in the field. So last year, one of my judges actually kind of worked on the type of project that I had. So he like gave me his contact and stuff for reaching out to like his organization later, and that was something that was helpful later. So reaching out to expert advice is good for your project, and then moving forward with it.
I guess for my suggestion, in addition to all the other things people have said, which are very good, this might not like apply to GSD, SEF in like later years because it will be virtual. But I know in like JSHS, it's traditionally a slide presentation that you do. So I think that one thing that I see a lot with people who do well is that their slide presentations make it so that a lot of people can understand them, not just people who have like PhDs and stuff. Um, they emphasize like the broader impact of their projects, and also a lot of their slide presentations have less bullets on their slide, because sometimes it's usually a bad thing if you're like reading off of the presentation.
Andrew, do you want to offer up any advice on fairs in general?
Yeah, I guess definitely go for a clean visual presentation. I know it's different this year because of slides, but last year I think one reason I did relatively well in judging is because I had like a slide, like I had a big poster, but it was really big text. I highlighted sections. I did a lot of bullet points. For example, and even for my methodology, I put like a flow chart instead of a like a list of text. I know it's like there's like rules about that, but in my case, I was pretty confident about explaining it. The details were in my notebook, so I decided to do the flow chart. It may not always be the case. Your fair may require you to have things listed out, but I guess my rule of thumb is like reduce text whenever possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my advice would be pretty similar to Andrew's. It's like I'll try to say this without sounding cheesy, but I guess like kind of turn it into a story in the sense that you should explain every logical step between each stage of your scientific method very clearly, because sometimes when you're presenting, things may feel disconnected to a judge, but just really focus on making those connections and justifying your methodology and then how that leads to your impact. And present that with confidence and you'll do great. So.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for your advice. This is like the formal end of the presentation. Please feel free to stay back if you'd like to ask us any more questions or have any specific questions on like fairs. We have like, I guess like a lot of advice on that. So thank you very much and have an awesome weekend. And everyone did super great at the fair.